The stars looked different from this far away from Earth. Commander Dae-Jung stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the endless black void dotted with distant suns. His crew had been traveling for 3 months now, pushing further into space than any human had ever gone. The ship was small compared to what Earth's governments planned to build someday, but it was fast and it was theirs. "Commander, I'm picking up something strange," Hana said from the pilot's seat. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, her eyes narrowing at the readings. "It's a distress signal, automated, repeating every 30 seconds. Dae-Jung moved closer to look at her screen. "Can you tell what kind of ship it is?" "Not human, that's for sure," Tiemann called out from the engineering station. The young man pulled up his own display, showing waves of data streaming across the monitor. "The signal pattern is completely different from anything in our database. This is alien technology." The word hung in the air, alien. They had hoped to find other intelligent life out here, but hoping and actually finding were two very different things. Ji-won, the medical officer, stopped what she was doing and turned to face the commander. Fray, their scientist, practically jumped out of her seat. "We have to investigate," Fray said quickly. "This could be first contact." "This is what we came out here for." Dae-Jung nodded slowly. "Hana, plot a course to the signal's origin. Best speed." The ship changed direction, its engines humming louder as they pushed toward the distress call. It took 20 minutes to reach the location, and what they found made everyone on the bridge fall silent. A large merchant vessel drifted in space, its hull torn open in several places. Surrounding it were 15 smaller ships, sleek and dangerous-looking, with weapons still firing into the damaged vessel. "They're attacking a defenseless ship," Viwan whispered, her hand covering her mouth. The attacking ships were like nothing they had seen before. They moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls covered in what looked like organic plating. As the horizon's edge approached, one of the attackers broke away from the group and turned toward them. "We're being scanned," Tiemann reported. "They know we're here." A moment later, their communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was harsh, clicking and buzzing in a way that made everyone's skin crawl. The ship's computer attempted to translate, producing text on the screen: "Unidentified vessel. Depart immediately or be destroyed." "This is not your concern." Dae-Jung looked at the damaged merchant ship. He could see lights flickering inside, could imagine the beings trapped there, waiting to die. Every instinct told him to help, but they were one small ship against 15 armed attackers. The smart choice was to leave, to report what they had found, to let someone else handle it. "Commander?" Hana asked quietly, her hand hovering over the weapons controls. "How many people do you think are on that merchant ship?" Dae-Jung asked no one in particular. "Based on its size, maybe 40 to 60 individuals," Fray answered, still running calculations on her screen. Dae-Jung took a deep breath. "Hana, bring us around. Target their weapon systems. Tiemann, divert all available power to shields and engines. Guan, prepare the medical bay for casualties. Ours or theirs." "Sir, we're outnumbered," Hana pointed out, though her fingers were already moving to follow his orders. "I know," Dae-Jung said simply. "But we're not going to just watch people die." The horizon's edge suddenly accelerated, shooting toward the attacking ships at a speed that caught them off guard. Hana wasn't following any standard attack pattern because humans didn't have standard attack patterns yet. She moved the ship like she was driving through city traffic. Weaving and dodging in ways that were completely unpredictable, the alien attackers fired. But their shots missed as Hana spun the ship in a tight roll. The horizon's edge returned fire, its weapons striking 2 of the alien ships and disabling their main guns. The attackers tried to form up, to create a defensive position, but Hana didn't give them time. She pushed the ship into a dive, then came up underneath their formation, firing as she went. "They're trying to surround us," Tiemann warned, watching the tactical display. "Let them try," Hana muttered. Pulling the ship into another impossible turn, the attacking ships were faster and better armed, but they fought like they expected their enemies to follow rules. They positioned themselves based on standard combat doctrine, created firing solutions based on predictable movements. Hannah didn't know any of those rules. She flew like someone who had learned to drive on Earth's chaotic streets. Where survival meant being creative and a little bit crazy, Dae-Young watched the battle unfold, calling out targets and coordinating their attacks. Hit the lead ship, the one with the extra plating. Take out its engines. Hannah complied, sending a stream of fire into the designated target. The ship's engines exploded in a brilliant flash, sending it spinning out of control. The other attackers hesitated, clearly not expecting this level of resistance from such a small vessel. They're confused, Fray observed, tracking their movement patterns. They don't know what to do with us. That confusion was the only advantage they needed. Hannah pressed the attack, targeting another ship and then another. The attackers tried to fall back to regroup, but the horizon's edge stayed on them like a hunting dog. Teeman rerouted power on the fly, keeping shields up even as warning lights flashed across his console. Ji-Won monitored life support, making sure the aggressive maneuvers didn't cause injuries to the crew. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only 12 minutes, the attacking ships broke formation and fled. They jumped away into faster-than-light travel, leaving the damaged merchant vessel behind. "Cease fire," Dae-Young ordered. "Hannah, bring us alongside that merchant ship. Teeman, scan for survivors. Ji-Won, get ready to help anyone who needs medical attention." As they approached the damaged vessel, Dae-Young opened a communication channel. "This is Commander Dae-Young of the human ship Horizon's Edge. We responded to your distress call. Do you need assistance?" For a long moment, there was only static. Then a new voice came through, gentler than the attackers, almost musical. The translation appeared on screen. "Human? What is human? We do not know this species." "We're new here," Dae-Young said simply. "But you needed help, so we helped. Are you injured? Do you need medical assistance or repairs?" Another pause. "Then, you fought for us. You did not know us, but you fought for us." Why? Dae-Young thought about how to answer that. Because it was the right thing to do. The alien voice was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, there was something different in its tone, something like awe. "We are Valkyrie? Our people tell old stories about a species that would do such things? Stories we thought were just myths. They called them the Forgotten Ones, the Death World Warriors. Are you them?" Dae-Young looked around at his crew. Hannah was exhausted from the intense flying. Teeman was running diagnostics on systems that had been pushed beyond their limits. Ji-Won was preparing medical supplies. Fray was recording everything, her scientific mind already analyzing what had just happened. They were just 5 humans on a small ship, far from home, doing what they thought was right. "We're just humans," he said into the communication channel. "And we'd like to help you if you'll let us." On the screen, the damaged merchant ship's lights flickered. Somewhere inside, the Valkyrie were looking at the human vessel that had saved them. In that moment, something changed in the galaxy. Somewhere an old prophecy began to stir. Ancient records would soon be opened, and the universe would learn that some legends were real. The journey to Nexus Prime took 6 days. The Valkyrie merchant captain, who asked the humans to call him Silverleaf, insisted on escorting them personally. His ship limped along beside the horizon's edge, its damaged hull a reminder of how close they had come to death. During those 6 days, Dae-Young learned that the galaxy was much bigger and more complicated than Earth had imagined. Silverleaf told them about the Galactic Assembly, a coalition of 73 different species that had maintained peace for thousands of years. He spoke of the Cretan Swarm, the attackers they had fought off, who were known for their aggressive expansion and disregard for diplomatic solutions. "Your species is unknown to us," Silverleaf said during one of their video calls. His face was difficult for humans to read, with large eyes and skin that shifted colors based on his emotions. "No record exists of humans in any assembly database." "How is this possible?" "We only developed faster-than-light travel recently," Fray explained. She had become the unofficial liaison between the two ships, her scientific curiosity making her eager to learn everything about the Valkyrie. This is our first voyage beyond our home system. Silverleaf's skin rippled with what they had learned meant surprise. And in your first voyage, you engage 15 Cretan raiders to save strangers? This is not normal behavior for a species new to space travel. What would normal behavior be? Juwan asked. Caution, observation. Most species spend decades simply watching before they risk contact. Much less conflict, Silverleaf responded. But you saw danger and rushed toward it. This is why I mentioned the old stories. The forgotten ones were said to be like this. Reckless, some said. Heroic, said others. Hannah, who was listening while running system checks, laughed. We're probably a bit of both. When Nexus Prime finally appeared on their screens, the entire crew fell silent. The station was enormous, easily 50 times the size of the largest structure humanity had ever built. It hung in space like a small moon with hundreds of ships of all different designs docked to its surface. Lights glowed from countless windows. Energy shields shimmered around its perimeter. Welcome to the center of galactic civilization, Silverleaf said with clear pride in his voice. Home to over 2 million beings from every assembly species. The Horizon's Edge followed Silverleaf's ship through the docking procedures. Teeman marveled at the automated systems, which were far more advanced than anything Earth had. They were assigned a docking port and guided in by beams of light that seemed to think for themselves. As they prepared to disembark, Dae-Jung addressed his crew. Remember, we're representing all of humanity here. Everyone we meet, everything we do, is going to shape how the galaxy sees our entire species. No pressure then, Hannah joked, but her expression was serious. Silverleaf met them at the airlock. In person, the Valkyrie captain was tall and thin, with graceful movements that reminded G1 of dancers. Several other Valkyrie waited behind him, along with a dozen beings from species the humans had never seen. Some were short and covered in fur. Others were tall with multiple arms. One being seemed to be made of crystalline material that reflected light in rainbow patterns. News of your arrival has spread quickly, Silverleaf said. Many wished to meet the species that defeated a Cretan raiding party. What followed was overwhelming. The humans were taken on a tour of the station, and everywhere they went, beings stopped to stare. Some kept their distance, clearly wary. Others approached with endless questions. Word spread that the newcomers were called humans and that they came from a planet they called Earth. In a large meeting hall, they were introduced to members of the Assembly Council. The Luminae, an ancient species of beings that glowed with soft internal light, seemed particularly interested in the humans. Their representative, an elder named Brightness Through Clouds, studied the humans for a long moment before speaking. Your appearance troubles us, the Luminae said through a translation device. We must consult our archives. Please enjoy our station's hospitality. We will speak again soon. The humans were given quarters and invited to explore freely. Fray immediately wanted to visit the station's libraries. Teeman was drawn to the engineering sections. Jiwan found a medical facility and asked if she could observe their techniques. Hannah discovered an entertainment district with music from dozens of worlds. It was the music that caused the first real stir. Hannah had brought a portable device with thousands of human songs on it. In a quiet lounge, she played some of her favorites for a small group of curious aliens. They listened to everything from classical symphonies to modern pop. From traditional folk songs to experimental electronic music, one song, a simple ballad about loss and hope, made several of the aliens react strongly. A Valkyrie began to weep, their skin shifting through colors rapidly. A crystalline being's light pulsed in rhythm with the music. Even a stoic, rock-like creature seemed moved, though it was hard to tell with their species. What is this? The Valkyrie asked, tears still falling. This sound, it makes me feel things I have no words for. It's just a song, Hannah said, uncomfortable with the intense reaction. Music is important to humans. We make it when we're happy, when we're sad, when we want to remember things or forget them. No species in the assembly creates sound art like this, the crystalline being said, their voice like wind chimes. Our music is mathematical, precise. Yours is chaotic and yet perfect. It speaks to something deep inside me. Word spread again. Suddenly, everyone wanted to hear human music. Hannah found herself playing DJ for dozens of different species, watching their varied reactions to Earth songs. Some danced, their movements completely alien but unmistakably joyful. Others sat quietly, absorbed in the emotions the music evoked. Meanwhile, Timon was causing his own commotion in the engineering sections. A critical system had malfunctioned, and the station's engineers were following standard protocols to fix it, a process that would take 3 days. Timon watched for an hour, then politely asked if he could try something. The engineers, amused by the newcomer's confidence, agreed. Timon pulled out a basic toolkit and some spare parts from the horizon's edge in 20 minutes. Using materials the station's engineers had dismissed as inadequate, he had the system running again. How did you do that? One of the engineers demanded. That configuration should not work. It violates 7 different safety regulations. Timon shrugged. It works, though. Sometimes the best solution isn't the one in the manual. You learn to improvise when you don't have perfect equipment. The engineer stared at the repair, then at Timon, then back at the repair. We must document this technique. It is revolutionary. In the medical facility, Jiwon had her own moment of surprise. An alien child had been brought in with severe injuries from an accident. The doctors had done everything they could, but their prognosis was grim. The child would likely not survive. Ji-won studied the scans and the treatment plan. She noticed something the alien doctors had missed, a small detail about blood flow that was different but not impossible to address. May I suggest something? She asked hesitantly. The attending physician, a being with 6 eyes and 4 arms, looked at her skeptically but nodded. Ji-won explained a procedure from human emergency medicine, adapted for the child's alien physiology. The doctor was doubtful but desperate. They tried Ji-won's suggestion. 2 hours later, the child was stable and improving. By the next day, they were awake and talking. The child's parents wept with gratitude. The medical staff looked at Ji-won with new respect. Your species has survived injuries that would kill ours, the physician observed. You have learned medicine through necessity. There is much you can teach us. On the 3rd day at Nexus Prime, the humans were summoned to meet with brightness through clouds again. The Lumine Elder was surrounded by ancient data displays, holographic images of text in languages that looked impossibly old. We have searched our deepest archives, the Elder said, their light dimming slightly with what seemed like exhaustion. We found references to your species. They are old, so old that most believe them to be myth. But the descriptions match too perfectly to be coincidence. Dae-Jung felt his heart race. What do the archives say? They speak of a world far from the assembly space. A world of extreme danger where the environment itself tried to kill those who lived there. Where animals hunted with deadly efficiency. Where weather could destroy in moments. Where even the plants could be poisonous. They called it a death world. The Lumine's light flickered as they continued. The beings from this world were described as nearly indestructible. They healed from wounds that would kill most species. They could eat toxins and adapt. They felt fear but fought anyway. They protected others even when it meant their own harm. The texts say these beings would one day join the galaxy when they were needed most. Mireille spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. And you think that's us, humans? I do not think, Brightness through clouds said. I know, you are the forgotten ones, the Deathworlders. The legends made flesh. Outside the chamber, alarms suddenly began to sound. Red lights flashed along the station's corridors. A voice boomed through the public address system in multiple languages. Emergency alert. Cretan battle fleet detected at sector's edge. All security personnel report to stations immediately. The Assembly Council chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from all 73 member species crowded into the massive room, their voices creating a symphony of different sounds and languages. Translation devices worked overtime. turning alien speech into something everyone could understand. Dae-young stood in the center of it all, with Hannah, Timin, Jiwon, and Mireille beside him. They wore their ship uniforms, which suddenly seemed very plain compared to the elaborate clothing and natural features of the beings around them. Above them, holographic displays showed the Cretan battle fleet. Over 200 warships positioned. Just beyond the station's defense perimeter, the Cretan ambassador was a massive creature, easily 3 meters tall, with an exoskeleton that gleamed like polished black metal. When it spoke, its voice was a series of clicks and hisses that the translators struggled to convert. These humans attacked our rightful salvage operation. They destroyed 3 of our ships and damaged 7 more. They are a dangerous, violent species that threatens galactic peace. We demand they be extradited to Cretan space to face justice. Salvage operation? Hannah said loudly, unable to contain herself. You were attacking a helpless ship with people still inside? Silence, the chamber's moderator commanded, a floating being made of what looked like living gas. The human representative will speak when recognized. Silverleaf stood from his seat in the Valkyrie section. I was captain of that helpless ship? We sent a distress call. The Cretan were not salvaging. They were murdering. The humans saved 43 Valkyrie lives. The Valkyrie had entered Cretan expansion territory, the ambassador countered. They were trespassing. Our response was justified under salvage law. That sector has been neutral space for 600 years, another voice called out. A small furry being stood up, waving multiple arms. The Cretan are rewriting history to justify their aggression. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species supported the Cretans' position. Others defended the humans. Still others seemed undecided, worried about what this new species might mean for the galaxy's careful balance. The moderator's voice boomed through the chaos. Order, we will have order. The arguments died down gradually. The human commander will now address the council. Speak, Dae-young of Earth. Dae-young stepped forward, very aware that billions of beings across the galaxy were watching this transmission. He took a breath and began, We're new here. We don't know all your laws or your history. We don't understand your politics or your old disputes. But we know right from wrong. We saw people in danger, and we helped them. Where we come from, that's not a crime. That's called being decent. He paused, looking around at the assembled beings. The Cretan ambassador calls us violent. Maybe we are by your standards? Humans come from a difficult world. We've fought wars among ourselves that killed millions. We've made terrible mistakes. But we learned from them. We grew. We became better. Mireille stepped forward to join him. Earth is what you call a death world. Everything there is dangerous. The animals, the weather, the diseases. Humanity survived by being tough and adaptable. But we also survived by working together, by protecting each other, by refusing to give up even when things seemed hopeless. These qualities make you dangerous, a reptilian representative said, its voice cold. You fight with a ferocity we have not seen in millennia. You take risks that no rational species would consider. You are unpredictable. We're also loyal, Jawan said firmly. We helped the Valkyrie knowing we might die. We didn't know them. We had no treaty with them. We just knew they needed help. Timin added, and we're innovative. We solve problems in ways you haven't considered because we come from a place where following the rules wasn't always enough. Sometimes you have to create new rules. The Cretan ambassador slammed a massive claw on the floor, creating a sound like thunder. This proves our point. They admit they do not follow rules. They are chaos. They will destabilize everything the assembly has built. Brightness through clouds floated forward, their light pulsing gently. Or perhaps they are exactly what the old prophecies described. Beings who will challenge us to be better, to think differently, to remember that rules should serve justice, not replace it. Old prophecies, a metallic being scoffed. We are a civilization of science and reason. We do not make decisions based on mythology. Then make your decision based on facts, Mireille said, pulling up data on her portable device and sending it to the chamber's displays. In 3 days on this station, humans have introduced 7 new problem-solving techniques to your engineers. We've shared medical procedures that saved lives your doctors had given up on. We've created art that moved species who thought they understood emotion. We're not perfect, but we can contribute. The debate raged for hours. The Cretan demanded justice. The Valkyrie demanded gratitude toward their rescuers. Smaller species worried about setting precedents. Larger species debated military implications. Through it all, the Cretan fleet waited outside, a silent threat. Finally, as the station's artificial night cycle began, a vote was called. The question was simple: should humanity be granted provisional membership in the Assembly, or should they be exiled from galactic space to appease the Cretan Empire? The vote was close. 38 species voted for acceptance. 35 voted for exile. The moderator's voice was heavy. The vote is not decisive. We will recess and reconvene in 12 hours for further discussion. Dae-Young and his crew returned to their quarters, exhausted and worried. We might actually be kicked out of the galaxy before we've barely entered it, Hana said, collapsing into a chair. We did the right thing, Dae-Young said firmly. Even if they exile us, we did the right thing. Maybe that's the human problem, Tiemann said tiredly. We care too much about doing the right thing and not enough about the consequences. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring again. This time they were different, more urgent, more terrifying. The station's lights flickered. Through the window, space itself seemed to tear open. Mireille rushed to a computer terminal, her fingers flying across the controls. What is that? On the screen, a rift had appeared in space, bleeding purple and black energy. It was growing, expanding like a wound in reality itself. And through it, something was coming. Ships emerged from the rift. No, not ships. Living things. Massive, writhing creatures covered in what looked like organic technology. They moved through space like they were swimming, and where they passed, everything went dark. Sensors, communications, even light itself seemed to die around them. Emergency broadcast on all channels, the station speakers crackled. Unknown hostiles emerging from dimensional rift. Classification: Vexnari. Repeat, Vexnari have returned. All military forces engage immediately. Civilian vessels evacuate to safe distance. Vexnari? Jiwan asked. What are those? Silverleaf burst into their quarters, his skin color showing pure terror. They are death. They are what ended the last great civilization 10,000 years ago. They consume biological matter and replicate. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped. Through the window, they watched as assembly warships engaged the creatures. Beam weapons struck the Vexnari, but the creatures seemed to absorb the energy, growing larger. Missiles exploded against their hides, causing minimal damage. The Vexnari fought back with weapons that seemed to ignore shields, tearing directly into ship hulls. We have to help, Dae-Young said, already moving toward the door. Help? Silverleaf's voice was shrill. You do not understand. When the Vexnari last appeared, it took the combined might of 100 species 50 years to drive them back to their dimension. That was when the galaxy was much stronger. We barely survived then. Now? Now you have us, Hana said simply, following Dae-Young. The rest of the crew moved without hesitation. They ran through corridors filled with panicking civilians, past security forces rushing to battle stations, toward their ship. Behind them, Silverleaf followed, still trying to explain the hopelessness of the situation. On the horizon's edge, they powered up systems quickly. Through the view screen, the battle was going poorly. Assembly ships fought with discipline and coordination, but their tactics were designed for fighting other civilized species. The Vexnari fought like animals, wild and unpredictable. They're losing, Tiemann reported, scanning the battle data. The Vexnari adapt to their weapons. Every time the assembly hits them with something, it works less effectively the next time. So we need to keep surprising them, Hana said, her hands on the controls. We're one ship, Jiwan pointed out. What can we possibly do? Dae-Jung stared at the battle, at the assembly ships falling back, at the Vexnari pressing forward toward the station where millions of civilians cowered. He thought about the council debating whether humans were too dangerous. He thought about the Cretan fleet, still waiting for their chance to demand human surrender. He thought about Earth so far away, blissfully unaware that their first venture into space had found something that could threaten all life. "We do what humans do," he said quietly. "We fight dirty. We take risks. We protect people, even when everyone says it's impossible." Hannah grinned, though her eyes showed fear. "So the usual then?" The Horizon's Edge launched from the station. The Horizon's Edge cut through space toward the Vexnari, and every sensor on the ship screamed warnings. The creatures were massive up close, each one the size of a small moon. Their bodies pulsed with sickly purple light, and their surfaces were covered in mouths, eyes, and things that defied description. "That's it," Hannah muttered. "I'm never sleeping again." "Weapons locked," Tiemann reported. "But Commander, I'm not sure our guns will even scratch them." "Then we make them think we're more dangerous than we are," Dae-Jung said. Hannah, evasive pattern random walk. Tiemann, fire everything we have at the nearest one's eyes, or whatever those glowing spots are. The ship jerked into motion, moving in a pattern that made no logical sense. The Vexnari turned toward them, dozens of appendages reaching out like grasping hands. The Horizon's Edge fired, and its weapons struck one of the glowing spots dead center. The creature screamed. It was a sound that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space, but somehow they heard it anyway, felt it in their bones. The creature thrashed, and a piece of its body tore away, floating dead in space. "It worked," Fray shouted. "The glowing areas are vulnerable. There's some kind of sensory organ." "All ships, this is human vessel Horizon's Edge," Dae-Jung broadcast on all frequencies. "Target the glowing areas. Repeat, target the glowing spots. They feel pain." Several assembly ships heard and adjusted their tactics. Concentrated fire hit the Vexnari's vulnerable points. More screams echoed through space. The creatures began to retreat slightly, more cautious now, but there were too many of them, and more kept coming through the rift. For every one that retreated, two more emerged. Assembly ships were falling, their hulls torn open, their crews lost to the void. "We need more ships," Jiwan said, her voice tight with stress. "Where's the Cretan fleet?" "They're just sitting out there while everyone else fights." As if answering her question, the Cretan battle fleet suddenly moved, but they didn't join the fight. They maintained their position, blocking one of the escape routes from the battle zone. "They're using this as leverage," Tiemann said bitterly. "They'll only help if the assembly agrees to their demands." Before Dae-Jung could respond, new contacts appeared on sensors. Human ships. The ones that had followed the Horizon's Edge to this sector, hoping to establish trade with whatever aliens they found. There were 30 of them, cargo vessels and exploration ships, nothing built for war, but they came anyway. "This is Captain Sungmin of the trading vessel Fortune's Wind," a voice crackled over the radio. "We heard the call for help. Humanity doesn't run from a fight." "This is Captain Bora of the Deep Space Explorer," another voice added. "We're not warriors, but we'll do what we can." Dae-Jung felt something swell in his chest. Pride, hope, the crazy human determination that said, impossible just meant you had to try harder. "All human vessels, this is Commander Dae-Jung, form up on me. We're going to buy the assembly time to evacuate civilians." The 30 human ships fell into formation. They were slow. They were poorly armed. They should have run. Instead, they charged toward the Vexnari like ancient cavalry facing impossible odds. What they lacked in firepower, they made up for in unpredictability. Cargo ships rammed the creatures at full speed, their captains ejecting in escape pods at the last second. Exploration vessels used mining lasers as weapons, cutting at vulnerable spots with surgical precision. Scout ships darted between the monsters, drawing fire away from larger targets. The assembly fleet, inspired by the humans' example, rallied. A Valkyrie commander organized his ships into strike teams, each focusing on a single creature at a time. A crystalline species used their ship's natural energy emissions to blind the Vexnari's sensors. Even some of the species that had voted to exile humanity joined the fight. In the medical bay of the horizon's edge, Yuan worked frantically. Dae-Young had ordered her to begin analyzing samples of Vexnari tissue that Timan had managed to collect using the ship's tractor beam. The substance was unlike anything in her medical database. "It's partially organic, partially technological," she said, running test after test. "It adapts incredibly fast? Every time we hit them with the same weapon, it works less effectively because they literally evolve resistance. So we can't beat them?" Myray asked, helping with the analysis. "Not with weapons. But maybe biologically." Jiwan pulled up data on human immune systems. "When humans get sick, our bodies learn to fight the infection. We adapt too." "What if we could weaponize that?" Murray's eyes widened. "A biological agent. Something that attacks their organic components. But it would need to be delivered directly. And it would need to incubate in a living host first," Jawan added quietly. "Someone would have to get infected intentionally, let it develop, then get close enough to the Vexnari to transmit it." They looked at each other, both understanding what that meant. A suicide mission. On the bridge, Dae-Young listened to their proposal through the intercom. His hands gripped the command chair until his knuckles turned white. "You're talking about infecting yourselves with something we don't fully understand, flying into the middle of those things and hoping you live long enough for the plan to work." "Yes," Jawan said simply. "There has to be another way." "Commander," Murray's voice was steady. "3 colony worlds have already gone silent. The Vexnari are spreading. If we don't stop them here, they'll consume the entire sector. Then the next one. Then the one after that. Eventually, they'll reach Earth." Dae-Young closed his eyes. Command meant making impossible choices. "How long to develop this bioweapon? 4 hours, maybe 5. "We don't have that long. The station's shields are failing." "Then we buy time," Hannah said from the pilot's seat. Her voice was calm, accepting. "We keep fighting until it's ready." The battle raged on. Human ships fell, their crews dying with weapons firing until the very end. Assembly vessels fought alongside them, learning from human tactics, adopting their willingness to take risks. The species that had argued in the council chamber hours ago now bled together in the cold of space. Captain Sung-Min's cargo ship was torn in half by a Vexnari appendage, but his cruise pods escaped. Captain Bora rammed her ship into a creature's eye, blinding it before ejecting. A young pilot named Heian broadcast a message to his family on Earth, telling them he loved them, before making a final run that destroyed a Vexnari that had been about to crush an assembly medical ship. In the medical bay, Jiwan and Myray worked without sleep, developing the bioweapon. They used human antibodies, Earth viruses modified to attack alien biology, and pieces of Vexnari tissue itself. The result was something terrifying, something that would attack the creatures from the inside. "It's ready," Jiwan finally announced. "But I need to test it." "Test it on me," Dae-Young said immediately. "No," Jiwan said firmly. "We need you commanding. I'm medical. This is my field. I inject myself, monitor the progression, and if it works, I'll know exactly what symptoms to expect. Myray stays here to finish the work if something goes wrong." Before Dae-Young could argue, Jiwan injected herself with the bioweapon. She gasped as it entered her system, her body temperature spiking immediately. "It's aggressive. Good, that means it will spread fast." Over the next hour, Jiwan's condition worsened. Fever climbed, her vision blurred, she vomited twice. But she kept working, kept monitoring her own vital signs, kept refining the formula. Myray watched helplessly, adjusting the formula based on Jiwan's reactions. "I think I've got it," Jiwan finally whispered, her skin pale and sweaty. "We need volunteers. People willing to get infected and go into the heart of that mess." "I'll put out the call," Dae-Young said, though his voice broke slightly. The response was immediate. 20 humans volunteered. So did 30 assembly crew members inspired by human courage. Velkari, crystalline beings, furry creatures, even one Crethan deserter who had been on the station during the attack. They all came forward, knowing they would probably die. 50 beings lined up in the medical bay. Jiwan, barely able to stand, personally injected each one. The infection will take about 30 minutes to fully develop, she explained. Then you'll be contagious to the Vexnari. Get as close as you can. Physical contact is best? Dae-Jung watched as the volunteers prepared. They climbed into small fighters and shuttles, ships that could get close to the creatures. Hannah gave them all a crash course in evasive flying. Teeman armed their ships with every weapon they had left. This is insane, Silverleaf said, watching the preparations. His skin had settled into a solemn gray color. But it is also the bravest thing I have ever witnessed. That's humanity for you, Teeman said quietly. We're very good at being insane and brave at the same time. The volunteers launched, 50 small ships flying toward certain death. Behind them, what remained of the human and assembly fleets formed a defensive line, protecting the station where millions of civilians sheltered. Dae-Jung opened a channel to all the volunteer ships. I don't have a speech prepared. I don't have inspirational words. I just want you to know that what you're doing today, people will remember it forever. You're saving the galaxy. Thank you. The small ships dove into the swarm of Vexnari creatures. Some were destroyed instantly. Others made it close enough to fire their weapons into wounds, injecting infected blood and tissue into the monsters. A few brave souls actually rammed their ships into the creatures. The silence in the medical bay was heavy. Ji-Wan lay in a recovery bed, still weak from the bioweapon infection but alive. Beside her, 6 other survivors rested. 3 humans, 2 Valkyrie, 1 crystalline being, and a small furry creature that had volunteered despite their species' usual pacifist beliefs. They had done the impossible and lived to tell about it. Hannah stood at the window. Staring at the debris field that surrounded Nexus Prime, pieces of ships floated everywhere. Monuments to those who had fought and died. Somewhere out there, in that mess of metal and frozen bodies, was what remained of Dae-Jung's fighter. We should say something, Mare whispered. Standing beside Hannah, the scientist's eyes were red from crying. Some kind of memorial. Dae-Jung would hate a long speech, Hannah said, her voice rough. He'd want us to just get back to work. Help rebuild. Move forward. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, it doesn't. Teeman entered the medical bay, his engineering uniform stained with hydraulic fluid and ash. He had been working nonstop with the station's repair crews, fixing critical systems. The council wants to see us. All of us who survived. The 7 survivors, some on stretchers, were brought to the council chamber. The room looked different now. Battle damage scarred the walls. Several seats sat empty where representatives had died in the attack. The beings who remained looked exhausted, traumatized, but also determined. Brightness through clouds floated forward, their light dimmer than before but still steady. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. 43 humans died defending species they had known for less than a week. Your commander, Dae-Jung, gave his life to deliver the final blow against the Vexnari. The Luminae paused, their light pulsing slowly. We who remember the last war against these creatures know what you accomplished. 10,000 years ago, 100 species fighting together barely drove them back. Today, a handful of humans showed us how to win. Silverleaf stood from the Valkyrie section, his skin showing colors of deep respect. The Valkyrie people will remember. We will teach our children about the humans who saved us. Twice now, your species has rescued mine. We are forever in your debt. Even the Crethan representative spoke, though their voice was heavy with shame. Our fleet did not join the battle. We prioritize politics over survival. This dishonors us. The Crethan Empire formally withdraws all complaints against humanity and offers reparations for our cowardice. Species after species stood to speak. Some offered gratitude. Others offered apologies for doubting humanity. Still others simply wanted to know more about these incredible beings from the death world called Earth. When it was her turn to speak, Hannah stood slowly. Her body ached from the long battle, and her heart ached more from loss. Dae-Jung would tell you that humans aren't special. We're just people who learn to survive on a difficult world. We make mistakes. We get scared. We fight among ourselves. But we also help each other. We protect the weak. We try to do what's right even when it's hard. She looked around the chamber at all the different species, so many shapes and colors and types of life. The galaxy is beautiful. More diverse and amazing than we ever imagined back on Earth. We came out here hoping to find friends. We found that and more. We found a place where we belong. Fray added, and if you'll have us, we'd like to stay. To share what we know and learn from all of you. To build something together. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Assembly. Not provisional, not probationary. Full membership with all rights and responsibilities. The decision took less than 5 minutes, a stark contrast to the hours of debate before the attack. In the days that followed, the galaxy began to change. Human tactics were studied by military academies. Human medical techniques spread to hospitals across dozens of worlds. Human music could be heard in entertainment districts everywhere. Even human food became popular, with brave aliens trying everything from spicy stews to sweet desserts. G1 recovered enough to establish a joint medical research facility. She worked with doctors from 15 species, combining human knowledge with alien technology to create treatments that saved lives. The bioweapon she had developed was carefully archived, to be used only if the Vexnari ever returned. Timon became an advisor to the Assembly's engineering corps. His ability to improvise solutions with limited resources revolutionized how they approached problems. He taught classes on creative thinking, encouraging alien engineers to break rules when necessary. Fray joined the Luminae in their archives, helping to translate ancient texts and compare them with human history. She discovered that Earth had been observed by galactic scouts thousands of years ago, but they had deemed humanity too primitive and dangerous to contact. The scouts had been right about the danger, but they had missed humanity's potential. Hannah took command of the Horizon's Edge officially. The ship was repaired and upgraded with assembly technology, but she kept its human name and basic design. She led it on more exploration missions, always seeking out those who needed help, always willing to fight impossible odds. Earth received the news with a mixture of joy and sorrow. 43 humans had died, but they had saved countless billions of lives across the galaxy. Humanity had gone from unknown to legendary in less than 2 weeks. More ships were built, more crews trained. More humans ventured out to join the galactic community. A memorial was constructed at Nexus Prime, a towering monument of crystal and steel that showed the images and names of all who died fighting the Vexnari. Dae-Young's name was listed first, with a simple inscription beneath it, "First human to die for the galaxy. Not the last to care." 5 years after the battle, Hana returned to Nexus Prime during the annual memorial service. The station had been rebuilt, bigger and stronger than before. New species had joined the assembly, drawn by tales of unity and courage. Human and alien children played together in the parks, speaking mixed languages that blended words from a dozen worlds. G1 and Fray met her at the memorial. The 3 surviving members of the original Horizon's Edge crew stood together, older now, scarred by their experiences, but still strong. "Do you think he'd be proud?" G1 asked, looking up at Dae-Young's image carved in crystal. "He'd probably tell us we're being too sentimental," Hana said with a sad smile. "Then he'd ask what we're doing to make things better." "So we keep working," Fray said. "Keep helping. Keep showing the galaxy what humans can do." Timon joined them, along with Silverleaf. The Valkyrie had become something like Earth's ambassador to the Assembly, building bridges between species. "There's someone you should meet," Silverleaf said. They followed him to a school near the memorial. Inside, human and alien teachers worked together, educating the next generation. In one classroom, a young Valkyrie child was presenting a project about Earth's history. "Humans come from a world that tried to kill them every day," the child explained to their classmates. "A mix of species from across the galaxy. But they didn't become cruel. They became kind. They learned to protect each other because everyone needed protecting." Another child, a crystalline being, asked a question. "Why are they called Deathworlders if they care so much about life?" The teacher, a human woman named Soman, smiled. Because surviving death teaches you to value life? Humans know how fragile existence is, so they fight harder to protect it. After class, the crew spoke with Soman. She had arrived from Earth 2 years ago, part of the wave of humans who came to share knowledge and learn from the galaxy. There are thousands of us now, she said. Humans working on every major station, every colony world. We're becoming part of the fabric of galactic society. How do the locals feel about that? Jiwan asked. At first, some were nervous. We have a reputation for being intense and unpredictable. But people learn that intensity can be a good thing. We push boundaries, we ask uncomfortable questions, we refuse to accept that something can't be done. The galaxy needed that. As they left the school, Hana looked up at the stars visible through the station's dome. Somewhere out there was Earth, home to billions who now knew they weren't alone. Somewhere out there were threats still unknown, challenges still waiting. But there were also friends, allies, an entire galaxy of beings learning to work together. Do you ever regret it? Fray asked quietly. Coming out here? Everything we lost? Hannah thought about Dae-young, about the crew members who died, about the innocence of that first voyage when everything was new and hopeful. No, we made a difference. We saved people. We showed the galaxy that different doesn't mean enemy, that strange doesn't mean threat. That's worth the cost. Even though it cost us everything, we didn't lose everything. We found purpose. We found family across the stars. We found out that humans can be heroes. Hannah smiled, though her eyes were sad. Dae-young once told me that humanity's greatest strength isn't our toughness or our determination. It's our refusal to let darkness win. We shine light into the shadows, even knowing it might consume us. Years continued to pass. Humanity's integration into the galaxy deepened. Human innovation combined with alien wisdom created technologies neither could have developed alone. Human art inspired new forms of expression across hundreds of worlds. Human ideals about protecting the vulnerable influenced assembly laws and policies, but humans also learned.